Since a good portion of my remaining audience has been showing they're nostalgic for the old rants I previously deleted, I decided in this video to revisit one of them, watch it along with you, and give my present day reactions. Remember that this old rant I did on Nickelodeon was originally released in 2007. It's 2023 as of this recording, hence why I felt this old rant has no value anymore. At the time, Avatar The Last Airbender was still in its original run, and it would be years later when I'd finally watch it and fell in love with that franchise. Nicktoons that were more pushed in those days, like Teenage Robot, Fairly OddParents, Chalk Zone, Danny Phantom, Jimmy Neutron, were either still in the middle of their original run or just finishing them up. And again, I was still a nostalgic crazed 19-year-old who hadn't really watched the channel in a few years. And the reason why I released this rant was because the original channel objectives were making Zelda parody cartoons with my nephew, and because they took a long time to make, I was trying to add more content for those who were waiting. Similar to why I do the burgers and fries videos with my friends, just a way to keep the channel active for those who are patiently waiting for the next Coyote rant, whenever I get inspired to do one. So now that that's out of the way, let's begin. Take it away, 19-year-old me.
Nickelodeon ruled back in the day. To me, it was just more than a television network for kids. It was a daily ritual. Just about every day before and after school would be spent glued to the channel. I was a human TV guide for it, and I knew what show was on depending on which day of the week it was.
Ah yes, it was a daily ritual for me because that's what I did when I got home from school. Do it enough times and you remember what shows were on which days. I mean, what did you do when you got home from school?
But then the change started to happen. The older shows that I grew up on were being replaced by newer shows. And then the older shows that my generation loved were being put into obscurity, being placed in slots that aired while we were still sleeping, or they were placed on Sundays next to the other obscured out shows when most kids weren't watching TV. Until finally there was no trace of the older shows at all when they finally just decided to put their newer crap on Sundays.
At the time, Sunday was usually the day when older shows from previous eras or less popularly pushed programs were on. But since most kids over the weekend were outside playing or doing other things like playing video games, that meant shows on the Sunday lineup were getting pushed out.
With every new show, the jokes got lamer, the plot lines got more ridiculous, the characters were dumber, and they all suffered the same weakness. They fucking sucked!
Ah yeah, there's the old Triforce font that we used to use for the old videos.
In this part, I'll talk mostly about the Nicktoons, while part 2 will be about the live-action stuff. Now, in the early 90s, there was a demand for original Nickelodeon programs, as opposed to airing old British and Canadian syndicated shows. They finally made that happen with 5 original Nicktoons. Out of these original 5, Doug and Rocko's Modern Life were my favorite. I love them so much so that I still have both series' entire collection of episodes on unofficial DVDs.
At the time, I always liked to hold on to things as much as I could, and because there were no streaming sites or any official sets available to buy, I did what I could.
The old Nicktoons were great, because not only were they good for kids, they were good family shows, and they were great with adults too. Rocko especially had jokes and double entendres that adults got and could laugh at. Even today, I can still find jokes in these old shows that I didn't get as a kid that I find absolutely hilarious as an adult. Sure, Nick keeps using the trademark name today for their newer quote-unquote original cartoons, but frankly, the original 5, and only the original 5, deserve to be called Nicktoons. Period. What do we call the rest of them? I don't know, but I can think of 100 foul-mouthed names for the Nicktoons that were made after the 1990s.
Oh boy, now that's something I wish I would take back now. Considering in podcasts now I give my friend TT shit for still doing the whole I don't watch anything past 1999 BS. But again, I was 19. That's what I felt at the time.
There was one good Nicktoon made in the mid-90s, Hey Arnold, but after that, then the quality turned south pretty quick, going from simply okay, like the Wild Thornberrys and Rocket Power, into deep, absolute garbage, like Invader Zim and Jimmy Neutron.
I know I got a lot of people that always ask me, why did you hate Jimmy Neutron and Invader Zim? Here's the thing. Jimmy Neutron, I hated the animation and the CGI. And I hated the character design. I thought that hairstyle was just fucking lame. And Invader Zim just reminded me of the super annoying hyperactive kids I dealt with in middle and high school. Loud, obnoxious. So I was just turned off by them.
Even an original Nicktoon, Rugrats, became just as horrible as the newer crap it was airing with. In the early 90s, Rugrats had just 4 main babies, 2 preschoolers, and of course their parents. For 3 years, this formula worked, and I can guarantee anyone listening to my voice that I can still watch an old Rugrats episode with that formula with the same enjoyment as it was when I was a kid. Most people don't know this, but Rugrats was canceled in '94 after their first 3 seasons, and didn't air a new episode until 3 years later. 1997, the dreadful movie came out, and with it, all credibility Rugrats had before was lost, especially when they brought in that ugly-ass Baby Dill. Rugrats had officially jumped the shark. I don't care if Rugrats aired for 6 more seasons, produced 2 more cruddy movies, and even made a spin-off that was even more shitty than the Baby Dill episodes. The formula that worked was during the days before Dill. And they just kept adding new character after character, each one more retarded than the last. Oh, 1 more stupid baby wasn't enough? Let's add an Asian sister from France for Chucky. No, still not enough? Add a teenage babysitter? I'm glad they got canned in '04, otherwise they were going to add more stupid characters to try to save the show. They should have just stuck with the formula that worked and called it a day.
Now, I still hold to this stance. I can't watch most of the Rugrats episode past the introduction of Baby Dill. Trust me, I've tried. But when it came to All Grown Up, that was just the 19-year-old me automatically categorizing it without really giving it a fair chance.
1999 reached new lows with SpongeBob. Now honestly, I was okay with the first season of SpongeBob, when it was just this little-known show. The creator worked on Rocco, as did many of the writers, and the voice of SpongeBob did Heifer. But then they blew the fucking thing out of proportion. All of the sudden, SpongeBob was the biggest hit on the planet, and you couldn't go anywhere without seeing it on things. SpongeBob the backpack, SpongeBob the t-shirt, SpongeBob the cereal, SpongeBob the doll, SpongeBob Monopoly, SpongeBob the flamethrower, SpongeBob the edible panties, SpongeBob the Hubble Space Telescope.
Yep, had to do the
point.
Spaceballs joke, because SpongeBob was everywhere.
And it even produced a movie. Get me a break. That show is not that good. It's pathetic. The decline in quality continued with Jimmy Neutron, Fairly OddParents, Chalk Zone, My Life as a Teenage Robot. Ugh.
Okay, I was being unfair to Fairly OddParents. I actually do remember some good memories of laughing with it with my nephew when he was a kid. And in retrospect, Chalk Zone wasn't really that bad either.
These shows were suddenly filling up multiple slots every day, sometimes being aired in mini marathons for 3-4 hour slots at a time. And on Sundays, instead of having some of the classic shows on, they used these slots for more new crap. It was almost like they forgot, oh wait, do we really need to air only 4 shows during a 12-hour air date? Nah, these kids won't mind. They're retarded for watching them anyway. More crap to feed their shit for brains, I always say.
Now, I remember way back when someone did a response criticizing this video, he still agreed with me on how much they oversaturated the lineups with SpongeBob.
Despite this, I still kept up with this. And it was because I was always hoping they'd bring back Rocco. I was severely pissed when I figured out that it wasn't being syndicated anymore. And apparently, so were a lot of kids. I remember in 2002, 2003, when I was still a freshman in high school, seeing the Nick.com message boards flooded with messages saying, bring back Rocco. It happened, though to an extent, when they did a You Pick Nicktoons segment every afternoon, which we'd vote online for what show we wanted to see at a certain hour. Suddenly they put in the older obscured shows like Rocco as choices, and they were pitted against new crap like SpongeBob and Fairly OddParents. Every time Rocco was listed as a choice, it won. It kept beating the new shows. This old show that was out of syndication for years was suddenly beating SpongeBob during this voting contest. That right there showed these Nick bastards that most kids would rather watch the superior, better quality, and older Nicktoons like Rocco. And what did Nick do about it? They stopped having Rocco as a choice. They just gave a big fuck you to all the older followers who devoted part of their childhoods to their channel. After this, I was done with Nickelodeon for good.
Now, yes, I get that this was a 20-year-old thing at this point, but this was a true story. When I saw Rocco would be a choice on You Pick Live or whatever, I always did my part in casting my vote. And it's very possible that at the time, the market audience wasn't old enough to use the internet or probably didn't have access to it the way I did as a high schooler. But the older fans, like high schoolers, did have access. And what were they going to vote for? The shows we liked. And this happened for a few months or so. And yes, I did do a VCR thing until they stopped having Rocco or any classic Nicktoon as a choice. So that's what pissed me off of Nickelodeon for good.
Okay, sure, times change, people change, networks change, and what was cool before isn't anymore. Happens with every generation, right? I get that. But before someone tells me, dude, you just grew up, man, stuff just isn't good to you anymore, let me remind you that I bought the entire series of Rocco's Modern Life and Doug on unofficial DVDs from some website just so I can have the privilege of watching any episode of those shows when I want to. That right there shows how much I cherish some of these shows as a kid. Do I constantly watch them now? No, but when I do occasionally, I still look at these shows with a smile. Are they masterpieces? By all means, no. But something about it I just don't want to let go. And I want it to remain with me as I move on in life. Not to mention my 13-year-old younger brother wishes he was just born just a few years earlier so he'd see the shows I saw, because he agrees the newer cartoons are stupid. Even my 10-year-old nephew enjoys the Rocco episodes I showed to him.
Now that's something I used to do in old rants if you're paying attention. I used to have a bunch of text to read while I was still narrating. A lot of viewers would tell me it was tough for them to pay attention to the text while listening to the narration.
The reason why I bought unofficial DVDs of these two shows was because Nick has done a piss poor job of releasing their old shows on DVD sets. There are a few that are out there, but by all means not enough. Only a few episodes to one season of a show are on DVD, not entire series. I'd absolutely love to get a DVD set of these old shows, complete with special features and such, and I'm sure there's a group of people like me eager to have these DVDs in their collection. I'm aware that the first season of Rocco was officially released on 2 DVD sets, but I already have the entire series anyway, so there's no point in that, unless they somehow made new unreleased episodes. But I know for a fact there hasn't been a new Rocco episode since 1996. So what to do about the old episodes of shows that aren't on DVD? What could be done about that? YouTube can be great at putting old shows on. Gee, why are there no old Nicktoon episodes on YouTube? Wait, I know why. Because Viacom has to be complete babies and their my phases over it. No, that show mine. You bad person. You no copyright.
Now, the context behind this old thing was because I remember getting a copyright strike for simply uploading a 20-second clip from Rocco's Modern Life to YouTube, because we were embedding it on an old website blog that JMap and I did, but Viacom came a-knockin' and demanded it be deleted. And at the time, the channel only had maybe a couple hundred subscribers at the most, so of course that pissed me off.
So not only are they not releasing enough DVDs for the old shows, they won't allow them to be viewed for free on the internet, even though some of these shows aren't even on special satellite channels in syndication. Way to destroy chances of publicity, Viacom. So I definitely don't think I stopped watching Nickelodeon and never tune into that channel anymore because I'm 21. I honestly believe it was because of the decline in quality and the ever-increasing stupidity of the shows. Instead of family-oriented shows that adults could enjoy with their kids, Nickelodeon continues to produce unoriginal puke-stained cartoon shows that only appeal to kids younger than 8. Now, I can't tell when Nickelodeon stops and Nick Jr. begins.
And yeah, Rocco did have some life again for a couple years when they put it on Nicktoons TV, that satellite channel, but then they took the older Nicktoons off of that channel at the time, and that, again, just turned me away. It's like chocolate and vanilla. You either like both or you strongly prefer one or the other. So should I get mad at you for liking chocolate? I may not want that chocolate near me or pushed on me, but if you like the fucking chocolate, then eat the goddamn chocolate. As long as I can have my vanilla. And it wasn't the fact that Nickelodeon was moving on and producing new shows that were made in styles I wasn't fond of. It was that it was just much harder for an older fan like me to get access to the older shows that I wanted to see. And there was no chance for newer audiences to discover them. So yes, at the time, it was really hard for me to get access to my vanilla while everything was chocolate. Nowadays, you name it. You can find every episode of every old Nicktoon ever on streaming sites, both legit and non-legit. So now that people have access and can watch what they want, and either relive their nostalgia or realize these shows are not the major masterpieces that they thought they were, now we can. And ever since I can have my vanilla as much as I want when I want it, my opinions that were expressed in this rant from 2007 are much different now. And if you see the video where I rank the 90s Nicktoons worst to best, you can see where my opinions have changed. And eventually, I'll get to the 2000s worst to best. Thank you for revisiting this video with me. I'm Desert Coyote 22. Thanks for listening.